Well, I want to welcome everybody to the webinar today on enhanced cybersecurity. We're focusing very much on small and medium-sized businesses today. With me from Defendify, Rob and I will be sharing some intelligence that we have, capabilities, as well as really an overview and an in-depth touch again on cybersecurity for small businesses, particularly in this time where more and more of the remote worker environment, and we're seeing an increase in both ransomware as well as other cyber attacks. What I'm going to do is I'm going to also let you know that Dan Gleason from Active Cypher is muted and online, just to answer any technical questions that come up during the conversations. We want everyone to present questions to us. We have a moderator who will take those questions in and get them to us. We'll try to answer them at the end of the presentation. If we can't, we'll take them as parking lot items, and we will get back to everybody along with providing a copy of the video. We'll get those answers to you as well. So I'm going to turn it over to Rob and ask him to take us through the presentation.
Hey, Mike, thanks for the intro, and it's really nice meeting everyone who's on the call today. Excited about joining with you folks and sharing the information we have. We're going to take a little bit of a journey at the start here and discuss a bunch of different things specifically around small business. And I'm going to stop my video because if you know me, I do get animated with my arms, and I don't want to have that in the front of the camera distracting everybody. But here's the journey. We're going to start off talking a little bit about threats that have impacted small business and also specific incidents that have occurred. Then we're going to dive into, specific types of attacks that a small organization can see and things that they've witnessed, and then talk about some resolutions, things that you can do to mitigate the risks of a cyber attack at your organization if you're a smaller entity. I think to start off with, it's really interesting just to define what a small business is. The SBA, the Small Business Administration, defines a small business as an organization with less than 500 employees. That's their definition. So I think for a lot of organizations who might have 400 employees and maybe tens of millions of dollars in revenue, they may not consider themselves a small business. Perhaps now with the PPP loans that have been going out and them defining what small business is, maybe they do. But really, that's what we're talking about when we say small business. Let's start off with some stories. Anthem, surely not a small business, but it's an interesting one. A number of years back, about 78 million people were affected with employee health information being lost. And when they finished the forensic deep dive, they realized that the attack started with a phishing email, and that the attackers were inside the network for almost an entire year, moving laterally, doing their advanced persistent methodologies to try to get to this data. That's a long period of time. But when we look at smaller organizations and different types of groups, this is a great example of a government entity. So we're up here in the state of Maine. That's where I am. It's about 85 degrees out right now. It's gorgeous. But they had an incident at the Office of Information Technology. And what happened here is there was a contractor working on a database for them. And by accident, that contractor posted 2,100 foster parents' confidential information on a public-facing website. So this individual, because they're a contractor, would be considered an insider threat. They had valid access to the data. And the stat at the bottom there is saying that about a large number of data breaches have some form of insider threat involved in it. Now, the intention here by the contractor may not have been malicious, but no matter what, they were involved in this incident taking place with this confidential information being placed. This one actually just a number of days ago was put in the news. This is more of a malicious insider. So this is an individual who worked at a company, who left, who was not happy that they're no longer a part of it. No matter what the argument was about, what she did is she went in and she erased 5,000 files from the company Dropbox system, and they were gone. And the company claimed, that all of these things that happened based on her actions basically put them out of business. Really, really a shame. And it looks like this is in the UK, by the way. And the article reads to share that, she was prosecuted and charged with the crime. But it just shows that, you've got to really think about providing access to specific data and files for these insiders. And we're going to get a little deeper about insiders and talk about, what exactly that means. I think this story is very interesting. This is a university up in Canada, a handful of years back. They were building a bunch of new buildings on their campus, and they received an email from the construction company. And the construction company said, hey, we're changing banks. We want to make sure you're going to pay the invoices for the construction job to the right places. And, the finance team, they made the changes and they paid, the invoices totaling $11.8 million to the new bank place. And in the end, a little bit later, as the contractor was following up on their invoices, they discovered that that email really did not come from the construction company. That email came from cyber attackers who had sent fake emails to the university, trying to convince the finance department to change the bank and then make the payments to them rather than the construction company. And a key thing here is that when we look and talk to individual organizations about training employees to identify phishing attacks and specific types of cyber-related attacks, you can really reduce the number of incidents that occur, simply by just training them. So I do speak to a lot of small businesses, also, work with them, and also I've looked under the hood of many of them. And this question always gets posed when I speak publicly at folks. It's like, have you ever had a cyber attack at your organization? And most of the time, if we define a cyber attack, even being just a phishing email, like I just described a couple of them there, and I go around the room, about 70% of the people will put their hands up. So this is Hiscox, their research showing that about 68% of small businesses will say, yes, we've had a cyber attack in the past 12 months at our organization. Pretty significant number. And then also their research is showing that even though we hear about enterprise organizations having breaches and incidents in the news every day, a large portion, 50% of attacks now are targeting small business. And I think as we go through the presentation, you'll start to understand, a little bit more about why that is actually taking place. Now, this is a good one to explain that. When you look under the hood of a small business, many of them, and you see the type of protection that they have in place, they've invested over the years a lot of money into protecting their physical assets. So they have alarm systems and cameras, and they store their assets in secure rooms. They have employee handbooks so employees know how to be great employees. They're doing safety training and so forth. Now, the average loss in a burglary today is about $2,000 for a small business. The average loss from a cyber breach for a small business starts at $117,000. There's different research, but and then it works its way up from there. But in the exact same way, an organization needs to have similar things in place. They've got to have access control and alarm systems and store their data securely and have policies and plans and train their teams. But the majority of organizations that we look at look like this. They have maybe a firewall between the internet connection and the network, and then maybe some just regular signature-based antivirus. Just nowhere near enough comprehensive protection to protect themselves. And so when cyber attackers are looking at smaller businesses and they realize that they don't have the right levels of comprehensive protection, it's the path of least resistance for them. And so, quite often we have a little bit of an awareness challenge with smaller entities, where, when you start talking about cybersecurity to them, they might immediately go, hey, we don't store credit card data, so there's nothing that anybody wants to get a hold of inside of my organization. But when you really start diving deeper into these groups and start, doing data classification and understanding what they have, you start to realize pretty quickly that they have very sensitive information. And just to define sensitive data, if someone on the call here, is not aware, really the best way, your sales brochures and so on, that's public information. You're going to put it out there. But sensitive data is things that you're not willing to put on, for instance, your public facing website. You don't want anyone to read. And here are some great examples of those, vendor agreements and price lists and legal documents, tax documents, all these things are being stored in your systems, and they need to be protected properly. This last one here is really growing, customer sensitive data. So a lot of small businesses today provide services to larger entities, and they're receiving their customer sensitive data and storing it. And what's happening is this is really driving what we call third-party vendor assessments, where these large enterprise organizations are now going to small businesses and saying, hey, if you're going to do business with us, we want to know what your cybersecurity protection looks like, because we know you're going to store some of our sensitive data. Traditionally on the cybersecurity side, there's 4 key threats that organizations have to look at. Some small businesses may be affected by many of these. Others maybe just a couple. But first off, there's cyber criminals who are causing their crimes to make money. We have hacktivists in the top right corner who want to make a political statement for whatever reason that may be. Cyber soldiers, attacking the United States and organizations here. And there's no doubt that we have cyber soldiers on our side. And then the bottom right corner, insider threats. Now, I mentioned that in a couple of the previous incidents, but an insider threat is an employee, a contractor, an intern who has or had valid access to the systems and the data, right? And their actions aren't always malicious. It could be just someone making a mistake. And to keep that in a really simple perspective, it could be as easy as an employee taking a sensitive document, putting it in an email, regular email, and typing ROB, they're going to send it to Rob, and then putting the wrong email address in there with that autofill, and then sending that sensitive document to the wrong person. That's an insider threat, making a mistake and causing an incident to happen inside that organization. So that defines a little bit more about what an insider could be. Now, I mentioned that cyber criminals are causing their crimes to make money. There's lots of ways for them to make money, but the dark web, dark net, forums, places where people go to trade, all types of different things. And one of the things is that data has a lot of value to it. So here's some examples of some research that was done to show what's the value of the data. So social security numbers for about $1, credit cards, but credit cards with Fullz info that have more information attached to it have more value. So if it has like an address and mother's maiden name or a social security number tied to it, it's going to have a lot more value. Then we have medical records, right? So people can get a hold of that. Quite often they can be used for insurance fraud. It can also be used, lots of incidents of, and also the possibility of extortion. So if you're able to obtain someone's medical records, maybe they were the CEO of a large entity and you could use that to extort money from them, that could be done as well. So, medical records have a tremendous value to an attacker today. So there's a lot of different tactics that cyber criminals will use. One of the most common things that we see happening is phishing, the act of sending an email to an individual and trying to have them interact with it. I wish I could say that, the spam filters, the email filtering systems that people are deploying today stop everything. They're so intelligent, they're going to stop every email from arriving, but it's just not the case. There is still a percentage of them that are going to come in. And sometimes these emails are just, a wide shot. As an example, the princess who has millions of dollars to get out of her country and she wants you to work with them. I actually helped an organization, a long-term care facility that had an elderly resident there who was duped by this, unfortunately. So this is still flying around, but the emails now are getting a lot more sophisticated, and they can look like they're coming from a bunch of different things. So they could be coming from your bank or FedEx. Today, especially during this time, it could be something about coronavirus, World Health Organization, disaster relief, grants and loans. These are all things that everybody inside the organization needs to understand, to identify them and then know what to do with them next. And I also like to share a lot about social media because, as an example, if I was going to connect with Mike on LinkedIn, he would get an email from me saying, hey, Rob wants to connect with you, accept right through that email system. Your best action that you should take is to go directly to that website, log in properly, and accept the connection from there, not from the email system. And, to get past a lot of these things that are happening, I want to share with you, that a lot of these emails that are happening are pretexting. So as an example here, just to show you, here's an email that was sent to somebody I know who was acting like they were me. And this is happening in small businesses all over where the employees are receiving emails from the CEO or the finance person. And quite often there's no attachment, there's no link there trying to get somebody to do it. They're just trying to get them to communicate. And you'll see all types of different things. So an example of this email is saying, hey, let's talk, I need you to go shopping for me. This usually lines up with the gift card scam that's happening where the employee runs out with a credit card and buys a bunch of gift cards. There's also other scams where it just starts off with, hey, I need your phone number. What's your mobile number? I need to talk to you. And so they're basically going to get the communication outside of that email system and into a different form of communication, basically setting up the attack is basically what they're doing. Now, oh geez, this is our marketing team loves this little superhero figure of me, but I want to just quickly share what's happening. So if you think about spear phishing, where an email is sent directly at an individual, and sometimes could be launched from an email server that the attacker set up. Maybe they've compromised somebody else's email, so when it's sent at somebody, it looks legitimate. There's research that's done. There's so much information on us. LinkedIn, Facebook, the website's About Us page. Those emails are launched, sent to that recipient, and the recipient's going to get a handful of things. They could be asked to fill in a form, click on a link. They might be asked to open up a file, or get them to do an action like pay an invoice, or hey, can you send me your phone number because I need to talk to you on your phone. Those types of things all occur, and I think the key here is that if the email is unexpected, you've got to verify first. If we go back to that university that had the breach where the $11.8 million was sent, I have no doubt that that university was probably doing all types of, news and things saying, hey, guess what? We're building a whole bunch of new buildings on our campus with XYZ construction company. We're really excited about that. And that is news that anybody could read setting up an attack. So some quick tips, if you receive an unexpected email that's asking you to do one of these things, fill in a form, click on a link, open a file, do an action, reply with confidential information, the best thing you can do is really to reach out to the sender and verify. And I mean, unexpected. It's not like, Mike says, I'm going to send you a file in 2 seconds and you receive it. It's like it just came out of the blue and you're like, oh, I wasn't expecting this. You've got to verify first with a different means of communication. And we're talking about technology, right? So there's other types of, cyber attacks that can happen, such as phishing, where, the phone is being used to manipulate people or extract information, and, people calling can act like anybody they want. And it's important that an organization has ways to identify this. If this is a real vendor, is this this person who's calling, are they legitimate? And having that as a process inside their organization. Smishing, which is text messaging attacks, where text messages are coming across. As an example, maybe your Apple notification, your Apple ID is going to expire. Click on this link. It could take you to a website that looks like Apple, but it's really not. And then you fill in your information there, and next thing you know, your credentials are harvested by the attacker. So this could easily happen in a text message. And also, I wanted to share with you that you've got to be really careful about social media. Whether that's Instagram, LinkedIn, whatever tool you have. Now there's direct messaging built in these apps. And people can send attachments. And this is an article that was being shared about how that was used as a methodology to spread malware. So Mike is going to share a lot about and talk more about ransomware, but I just want to set the stage here that, in basic ways, ransomware is an attack method used by a cyber attacker to make money. So when they send, when they're successful with ransomware, it encrypts the data on your computers. Quite often it will spread laterally. There's lots of stories of many machines getting infected. But basically it's going to say, hey, pay us X amount of money with some cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, Ethereum, whatever it is. And when you do that, we'll give you the code to decrypt it and you'll be all back to normal. Sounds awful, and it really is. And organizations are really struggling with that. The big problem is you're stuck in this spot. If you don't have the right ways to get your systems back up and running, you haven't deployed the right things, you don't have a lot of choice. Sometimes organizations have no choice. They've lost all their files, they're encrypted, they don't have the right solution in place to get them back to normal, and they decide, we're gonna pay these criminals. Well, research is showing that about 50% get their stuff back. So there's a 50% who don't get their stuff back. And ransomware is really growing in their crimes. The estimated cost of ransomware, if you look at the bottom left, was about $1 billion in 2016. And now in 2019, we're seeing at 11.5 billion. And lots of small businesses are being affected by this and having this impact their organizations every day. Not a small business, but a great story to read about, the city of Baltimore, who had thousands of their endpoints infected with ransomware. And, they were going back and forth with the FBI. Obviously the FBI says, let's not pay these people. If you pay cyber criminals for ransomware, then, we're going to continue to fund their crimes. But in the end, Baltimore, for remediation, get everything back up and running without paying the cyber criminals, they were down about $18 million. significant amount of money. Now, the interesting thing that I've been watching is, this is a great website you can go to and check out, is that these attacks are even focusing on schools, K through 12 schools. And those pin drops you see are what this website's sharing in regards to where these attacks are happening that are reported. And it's a huge number of them there. And I mentioned, the city of Baltimore, but there's lots of cities and municipalities who are being hit with ransomware. There's some examples from last year. Even here in Maine, Augusta, Maine, the city of Augusta had a ransomware attack in 22 towns in Texas as well. So, it's coming from all different directions. I have a friend of mine who one day called me up and asked me, he said, hey, I've got this new digital doggy dish that I ordered. And what it does is I have an app on my phone and I can basically call into my house to the doggy dish, has a camera and a microphone and everything there. And I can actually say to my my dog, hey, come over here. And, I can actually send it a biscuit when it arrives in front of the doggy dish. And it's pretty cool. Do you think that's cyber secure? And I said, I have no idea, but let me tell you about Internet of Things. A lot of these devices, whether that's a security camera, a printer, the doggy dish, are all starting to connect to the network and the internet connections. And 26 billion devices are around the number in 2019, and that's exploding in growth. And some of these manufacturers, don't have a security first mindset. So they're really just trying to produce a product, get it out to market, and then you buy it and you deploy it. And there are things called vulnerabilities that can be discovered on these devices. And vulnerabilities can be discovered in software, hardware, IoT devices, and so on. And quite often when they're discovered and manufacturers list them, they're put into a place that anybody has access to understand what the vulnerability is. And in most cases, they'll apply a patch or a new software update to fix this vulnerability. And it's very difficult for organizations, first off, to identify which devices have that. So today we're seeing an increase in vulnerability management. So this is the use of tools that scan networks, applications, to identify if there is a vulnerability on devices and software and so forth. Then it ranks them, critical, medium, and warning. It's a great place for a small business to really have it. It's a good thing to have for a small business to have in place so that they can identify vulnerabilities on their systems, because when attackers have knowledge of vulnerabilities, then it gives them the ability, if they choose to utilize that vulnerability to cause their attacks. So I'm going to talk a little bit about passwords and everyone's favorite thing. One of my favorite slides. These are the most common passwords in 2019. So these are the most common passwords people use. Number one is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So just think a little bit about these types of passwords. And, if you're a cyber criminal and you want to get into someone's email system or their QuickBooks and things like that, you're going to start with the most common ones. And, cyber criminals quite often use tools that will try different types of passwords. But, I'm sure that everyone who's on the call here today probably has very secure passwords. Of course you do. But how about the employees who work inside of the organization? Like, how are you managing that? How are you controlling that? I think that all organizations need to understand that if these are the most common passwords, there's probably a great chance that your employees are using them too. And then this is some research done by an organization to just quickly showcase, what is a strong password? And I think what's happening is that, people are starting to realize that, the longer the password, the better. So as an example, number of characters, 4 characters. If it's a mix of uppercase, lowercase symbols, can be instantly cracked today with technology. And this is a few years back, so it's probably even faster now. Number of characters, 16, if you go all the way across trillions of years. So a longer period of time. So really using a longer password today is being recommended by security professionals. And the way to do that, one of the ways is to use passphrases. So it's getting your mind away from just believing in using a password and maybe making a sentence. So mixing characters, uppercase, lowercase, putting spaces in there, and developing that strong password. So protect all our customers as an example of a good passphrase. Another challenge here is that a large portion of people use the exact same passwords on all their systems. So, imagine an employee inside of a small business, when they log into QuickBooks and when they log into their Office 365 and their CRM system and all those different web apps, it's just all the same password. And one of the problems, and just to play a little scenario out for you, is imagine that, your office, you decided you're going to order pizza, and everyone's back in the office, and someone says, yeah, I'll order the pizza. They go to this local pizza place, and they go to order, and it says, hey, in order to order, you have to put your email address and you got to put your password in here. What are they going to use? They're going to use their business email address, and they use the password they use everywhere, of course, right? And so the risk of that is that if that pizza place does not have good cybersecurity on their web app, and cyber criminals are able to go in there and harvest those logins and passwords, then what they can do with that is they can then take those and then try to get into other systems that they can get, that they're aware of. So again, Office 365 and QuickBooks, and it can match right up. And just to show you some research on, these are some of the biggest breaches that have ever happened. So you may have heard about MyFitnessPal and some of these other ones, but look at the number of accounts, hundreds of millions of accounts. But the important part is the information that was stolen. So in the far right side, in every scenario here, it was an email and a password was obtained. So this is the starting point for criminal attackers. If they're able to obtain an email and a password from any type of site, even that little local pizza place, it gives them potentially the opportunity to get into someone's system, because they may use the exact same password for all applications. And so down at the bottom, 80% of hacking breaches are from brute forcing passwords and stolen credentials. This is new information that was done by the Verizon Data Breach Investigation Report. But organizations today are starting to have password managers. So they're starting to deploy enterprise-wide password management, single sign-on solutions for their employees, just so they can make sure that employees are using strong passwords, unique passwords for all sites. And if there's one thing that I think is really important that you go home and take care of, or in your business, is turning on two-factor authentication and not relying on just a password for these applications. What two-factor authentication is when you log in and you put your login and your password, you also have to put in a code, and that code could be a text message that comes to you. It could be an app that's rolling, something along that changes the code, and you have to enter that in. There's a website there that you can go to learn more about how to turn on two-factor authentication. But if there's one thing to go home with, I think that's an important thing to turn on all your personal life. Turn it on all your social media and everything that you use. So the University of Illinois did a really unique test. What they did is they took 300 USB drives. They spread them all over the University of Illinois, and they wanted to see how many were picked up by people and plugged back in. And when they finished, about 48% of them were picked up and plugged into a computer. So people were curious. I wonder what's on this. So after I shared all this information with you, I think you'll understand that it's a risk, right? If someone wanted to put some type of malicious software on that USB drive, leave it on the ground, someone pick it up, you're definitely putting your organization at risk. So USB drives today, definitely need to be taken care of in a small business. There's software that can be deployed that will block USB key usage. But the other part about USB drives that always has me concerned is the risk of a breach, where if you allow them inside your organization, then an employee could just decide, hey, I want to be a great employee. I'm going to work at the coffee shop on Saturday. They might put sensitive documents on that USB drive. And then next thing you know, they work at the coffee shop and they just leave it on the ground, or leave it on the table. And someone's going to pick it up. And as we see here, about 50% of people are going to plug it in their computer and look at it. And if the documents are sensitive and they have customer information or anything like that, it could put your organization at risk. I mentioned at the beginning that a lot of organizations, small businesses, are facing what we call third-party cybersecurity assessments. This is when the company, maybe one of your top customers, realizes that, hey, your organization, they've done a risk assessment on themselves, and they've identified that you're one of the vendors that might be a risk to them because you access their networks, or perhaps you have access to their sensitive data, or you store their sensitive data. And we hear almost every day from small businesses who say things like, hey, I've received like 5 of these assessments in the past year, or hey, we won the contract, but we can't start until we complete this vendor assessment. And quite often they're getting caught off guard. And these are some examples of the questions that are being asked of them. Like, have you ever done an assessment? Have you ever done testing? Have you ever done training of your team? Do you have policies and plans? Also, like, what kind of technology do you have deployed? What do you have installed on your endpoints and your servers? How are you backing up software? So you can expect as a small organization that these cyber assessments are going to continue to happen. And I think they're going to come at a more rapid rate than ever. It's really important to just be ahead of them so that you don't get caught off guard and not have anything in place or not plan for them. So I think the key thing, in my opinion, is that, cybersecurity is really not a project. It's not something you go in and you do once. It's a posture that everybody inside the organization really needs to have, good cyber posture. And, here at Defendify, it's really about 3 key layers: a layer of technology, a layer of culture, and then a layer of foundation. You've got to have layers of protection to have things in place. I just want to take a couple minutes and just share with you, what we are seeing small businesses doing now to sort of get themselves prepared, one, from a protection perspective, also those vendor assessment side of things. So the first thing is, conducting a cybersecurity assessment. We hear from so many people, I don't know where I stand. Am I good? Am I bad? Do I need other things? If you get a professional cybersecurity assessment done, you can really understand where your weaknesses are and where you need to prepare. Vulnerability scanning. I shared with you, talked a little bit about vulnerability management. So basically deploying tools that scan inside your networks, scan your devices to see if there are known vulnerabilities, and ensuring that you're keeping up with vulnerability management with patching and so forth. Organizations today will hire ethical hackers to try to break into their systems, whether that's a web application or their network, provide back a report saying, hey, we were able to accomplish these specific things and here's how it was done. Recently, I can share with you that a company, had ethical hackers try to do some testing, and they were actually able to get into their security camera system and actually view the cameras inside of their facility. So, knowing that that was a vulnerability would be important. Dark web scanning. So, I mentioned that those passwords are being sold and traded on the dark web. Doing scanning to see if your employees' email addresses and their passwords are showing up in there can be really, really powerful. So it's deploying a credential monitoring system so that you're alerted if they are dumped or traded or discovered in the dark web. People forget about their marketing sites, even their website. We worked with an attorney law firm where when you clicked on the attorney's name, it would take you to a casino gambling site. And so that's really bad reputation for that attorney group. So even scanning your marketing site to ensure that you don't have malware, if it's not blacklisted, all those different things is a valuable practice. And I think it's really important today that you set rules. You've got to set rules for all the employees and the contractors as to what you expect in regards to them using computers, mobile phones, applications. Everyone's cyber posture is different. If I look at the way my children use their phones, it's pretty scary compared to the way that I use my technology. And you can imagine that employees coming to your organization, they might have their own posture. And it's really important that you train them to a policy so they understand what's expected. And also to have an incident response plan. Incident response plan will outline what you are going to do in the case of an incident. So if you have ransomware, if you have malware, if you have a breach of sensitive data, these are the steps you're going to take to get your systems and your organization back up and running. And this is actually one of the questions that's quite often posed in those vendor assessments is, do you have an incident response plan? Do you have policies? And then, after sharing with you some of the stories about organizations, employees just making errors, you've got to constantly train your company on cybersecurity. If you go look in the construction industry, they do overall safety training, but most of them will do weekly toolbox talks where they talk about safety and make sure that everyone's protected. If you plan on just doing once a year cybersecurity training in your organization, it's not enough. You need to be doing ongoing training. So perhaps once a month, sending training awareness videos to your employees so that they can identify and learn what they can do to help protect the organization. And you should also be looking at threat alerts. These are like notifications of specific phishing attacks, incidents, things that might affect your organization, and just keeping aware of it. It could be, for instance, a vulnerability on a device that you have inside of your network. Having incoming cyber information can add some value. And then also phishing training. Most organizations today are beginning to deploy phishing simulations that will send phishing emails at their employees if they click on links, open files. It will spot train them on what they should have done differently. And as an example here, a phishing simulation might be, reset your Adobe password, and then it will showcase to you what the results are. So number of emails sent, how many were opened, who clicked on the email, and most importantly, when they did interact with that email incorrectly, it will spot train them on that. And then you've got to get into technology that goes way beyond just traditional signature-based antivirus. You've got to protect your computers, your mobile phones, protect the data, have it backed up properly, manage passwords. So you've got to get deeper than just traditional antivirus and firewalls, which I shared earlier. And as a methodology, all these things need to be running all at the same time. So you don't want to just have, do a project, walk away. Get all these wheels turning simultaneously so you have strong cybersecurity inside of your organization. Now I'm going to hand this off to Mike, but before I do, I just want to share with you a few things that we've developed here at Defendify that might be beneficial to you. So the first thing is when everybody went back, went to work from home, we developed a simple cybersecurity checklist. You can download this and see how you're doing from a work from home perspective. Head on to defendify.io/resources, and you can get all kinds of information here about different places to educate yourself on cybersecurity. And the last thing is I want to make a quick offer. Defendify is an all-in-one cybersecurity platform. That's what we've built, and that's what we help our customers with. There's 12 different tools in Defendify that you can use to help protect your small business. And recently what we did is we launched with our Essentials package. This is a no-charge package that anybody who's on this call today can go and download, can go and sign up for and utilize to help protect their organization. And it includes these 3 modules. The first one is a cybersecurity health checkup. So you can actually go through a full assessment of your organization and see where you stand, and actually maps up against a number of different cybersecurity frameworks. You can also activate a network vulnerability scanner, no charge, and it will scan your external network and provide you back a report showing if you have any vulnerabilities. And you're going to get our threat alert system, which is going to provide you ongoing cybersecurity knowledge to your organization on an ongoing basis. Usually twice a week, there's new reports that come in there as well. So if you're interested, go to defendify.io/essentials, and you can sign up now and have that essential package at no charge. So I'm going to pass it over to Mike. Mike, thanks for letting me share this information, and over to you.
Well, hey, Rob, thank you very much. That was more than extremely helpful. I think it started a level set for a lot of people what the complexities are in the small business world. One, it also reflects on the fact that resources within corporations, large and small, have to be aware, have to be operating in a mindset of security. There is an ethics issue today in this business. One of the things we focus on, which is a subset of what Rob and Defendify work on, is we provide products for consumers all the way to enterprise. In the enterprise, it's a very robust capabilities focused on managing your security environments based on a Microsoft Active Directory, Azure Active Directory, so the cloud, hybrid cloud type of environments with a heavy reliance on encryption. All of our products are designed to do data protection at the file level. So this isn't encrypting a server, it's encrypting the data that's on the server. As we get into small business, as well as in what we call the prosumer, the professional who's really got that small 10-person shop, up to that 500-person shop, what we talk about is the fact that we want proactive protection against ransomware. Today, a lot of products that are out there help you mitigate some of the effects, but do a lot more in the area of recovery. What we talk about is the fact that right up front, right from the beginning, when you install our DataGuard products, what you're getting is the ability to basically thwart all of the known ransomware attacks that are out there, such that when you do your recovery, because everybody has to do a recovery to clean their systems, what you come up with is the ability in our product line to have a real-time backup that is done in such a way for small business that it is both local and cloud-based backups, but the files are obfuscated. So we basically use a cloaking capability that when the perpetrators come in, their products looking for certain types of file types, very traditional ones that are normally on your systems, and we basically make them invisible, so they actually they can't encrypt those folders, and therefore their ransom attack basically comes to a halt. It fails. Now, they do impact your systems. That's one of the things they want to do. They want to turn off all your security functionality in your systems, but those are all recoverable things. We can go to the next slide, Caspian. So one of the things that Rob talked about is the fact that this is a very costly aspect of the cybersecurity business. We're seeing the ransomware payments increase exponentially from a small medium business. We're seeing people lose $128,000, maybe $200,000, $500,000 with a company I know in Massachusetts. And then we working with some of our enterprise customers literally had a ransom request that came in for $82 million. And another company that actually has a line item in the budget for $1 million a week to pay cybersecurity, to pay ransomware to get their data back. They've given up and put a line item in. So we work with them to basically mitigate those capabilities. One of the things that we're talking about here is it isn't the cost of making the payment in Bitcoin. Like with the city of Baltimore, it was the $18 million they spent to remediate their systems, bring everything up to a level in which they felt they were now secure and could operate again safely as a city. This is literally going in and scraping the mildew off of every page of every book that you own in your house after a flood. And that's what you're doing when you're looking at ransomware and its impact in your business. This is blackmail. This is extortion. That is, no more kinder, gentler terms. We can drop to the next slide, Caspian, appreciate it. So when we're talking about data guard within our product line, we're basically looking at vaccinating folks. And we're using that term because today we're in an environment where all of a sudden, all of this comes together with a remote worker. People are using their home machines to do both their personal and their work data on the same device. These hackers are coming in and basically looking at, can they get at you through your personal environment and then basically move lateral into the businesses that you work with or work for. So basically looking at some sort of digital coattailing where they can basically move from one to the other. And in the end, you as the individual, both aspects of your life, your home and your business are ransomed. And if the corporate environment isn't secure enough to be able to manage that and that work environment, then they become even more vulnerable through an alternate methodology. And as Rob was pointing out, so we offer a file cloaking capability that basically locks and protects all of the main data that you're interested in from a personal point of view, but also from a professional point of view. We have a ability when for an instantaneous recovery, because we do real-time backup, that we're able to go out and basically retrieve all of your backed up data, put that back on your system after you've cleaned your machine, or if you decide to put it on a new device, you can do that. So basically, we're offering the ability to reset the computer to a point where it was right before the attack, not a week earlier or a day earlier, but right then and there. And last but not least, we're using some AI sensors and capabilities to basically identify the methodologies by which these ransomware attacks happen. What are the steps that they have to do in order to basically put your systems and your machine in a environment in which they can own it. We look at those steps and then not only alert, but basically shut down those activities, basically break the chain of process that they're using. Next slide. One of the things that we talk about here is the fact that it isn't just a simple capability. One of the things that we do with our product, as well as doing the automated data restoration, providing end-to-end encryption with either a proprietary one that we've designed called quantum encryption standard, but also the currently available AES or other proprietary algorithms. We talk about the fact that we do things that are a little different. We do very large file support capabilities. We can allow document collaboration capabilities in a secure environment for the files. We do the threat analytics. We do behavioral detection and work heavily with the remote worker type of environments for security. So IT teams or MSPs that are helping smaller businesses provide these capabilities. There's a cohesive work amongst them and in understanding how it works. But up in the upper left-hand corner is one of the key capabilities of the product. One of the things that Rob talked about was somebody sending in on a file to somebody, typed in Rob, and the autofill basically sent it to a different Rob. Now that different Rob has that file. Now, if that Rob is a nice guy, you know, he's going to destroy that file. But if he doesn't, can it get in the wild? We offer a capability where you as the users basically can share files securely through a viewer that is up in the cloud. So they can actually view the document. We allow you then to make decisions that they can print it or they can download it, depending upon how you want to configure it for that individual. But you can send it in a way that they can look at it, but they cannot manipulate that data. One other capability that comes into this is the fact that we basically allow you to set an expiration on that file. So if I was to send an email to Rob and I set it so that it has a 3-day expiration on the attachment, and Rob doesn't open it within 72 hours, or even if he does open it within 72 hours, at that 72-hour point, that file disappears. It's no longer available to Rob or anybody else. So it doesn't live in the wild forever on Rob's machine or anybody else's. And it's a slider type environment. You can move it from 72 hours up to a month, you know, but you have the ability to do that and the ability to monitor what files have been out there before. Now using DataGuard, those files all based on your profile become non-existent. They basically, those die as well. So we add a level of capability that allows flexibility, but also maintains security without burdening the users or the recipients. The system allows these capabilities to happen. Next slide. And to give you an idea of, you know, when we talk about the product family, just so people understand, we started out with a product basically called File Fortress there in the center. It had a complementary product called Scout, which does just that. It goes out, as Rob talked about, doing a health check. We do a health and sanity check on enterprise and large, medium business that use Active Directory to make sure that their implementations and they're compliant with best practices that Microsoft provides. File Fortress, again, is an end-to-end file security system. So data is generated, data where it's stored, where it's in transit, or where it is at rest, regardless if it's in box, like the files that were basically deleted in box in that issue in England. We have the capability to encrypt those files in such a way that and provide intelligence around it that wouldn't have to have happened. And finally, we talk about Ransom Data Guard, where in the SMB and enterprise, we are taking the File Fortress capability, so an enterprise product, and skinning it down for SMB and enterprise. But then in the works, basically what we've done is combine the two capabilities of the Ransom Data Guard and the File Fortress capabilities into one product that basically provides a complete end-to-end data protection setup for small, medium businesses as they operate day to day. I know we've received at least one question, but we want to open it up to others, but also open it up to Rob to come back and to Dan Gleason, who's out there to provide some additional feedback now that I've done our product pitch and discussion on the same things. But again, I want to thank Rob for investing the time to kind of educate everybody, even educated us. It's good for these types of reviews for everybody all the time.
Yeah, thanks for having me. We'll see if Dan has anything he'd like to share.
Thanks, Rob. I saw the question was coming in from Maine, so I thought that would be a good one for you to pick up. I'm not sure if you had seen in the Q&A there.
Let me take a look here. Oh, let me read this question. This is good. Interesting. As someone who has been born and raised in Maine, I'd like to know if there are things that Maine faces, specific threats that Maine faces that other locations across the country might not. Are there specific situations that keep businesses in Maine from getting serious about their own cybersecurity? What a great question. So, well, let's set the stage here for the state of Maine. Relatively safe state, not a lot of crime. A lot of people live in their homes and don't even lock their front doors when they leave. For some people, that just seems crazy. So when you think about a security mindset, I think that there's a lot of people in Maine who might think that cybersecurity is not going to impact them or is needed to protect them against attacks. But the fact is that, cyber attacks don't have borders. They happen from all different places, and they can focus on an organization right in Maine the same way that they can focus in an organization in New York. So I think it's really important today that organizations in Maine and New Hampshire and Vermont, I'm naming some small New England states, that they realize that, yeah, cyber attacks are real, and the threat is the same for them as it would be for an organization in a large city. So I hope that it helps answer the question.
Yeah, and to that point, Rob, I think that the fact of the matter is, everyone is considered equally vulnerable, regardless of age, regardless of your technology prowess. You brought up a lot of issues around phishing. I mean, Dan is going to laugh, but I don't know how many of those, hey, Mike, I need your phone number, I've gotten in the last 4 or 5 weeks. It's because, and it's an honest thing, right? Our company's getting more popular, getting seen out there on LinkedIn, Facebook, and other places. And so they're like, hey, let's go after them. I had one last week where it was on Facebook, and it was, it was an email, and it said, hey, you need to open this link, and, we need to talk about this. And it was from a law firm in North Carolina. So the first thing I did is I called the law firm, and their voicemail system, answering system said, if you're getting emails from us, we're not sending them to you. I mean, it was like the first thing that they were trying to let everybody know they didn't send them. Right. And, it's unfortunate to think how many people never did that, clicked on that link, and got themselves taken to the cleaner, so to say, by whoever is at the other end of this, using up this law firm's valuable reputation. And that's a big part of this, is your brand and your reputation basically get tainted in these environments. The new protection laws like CCPA in California, GDPR in Europe, the SHIELD Act in New York, and a dozen others that are being placed around. Just because you don't live in that state doesn't mean you're not impacted, doesn't mean you're not vulnerable. And so we need people to really be aware that there is an ethics and morals issue around this. And like you said earlier, Rob, some of it's unintentional. There's a lot of unintentional. And, we're just going to have to accept the unintentional, but we have to be able to monitor it and understand when it happens and have systems that can protect against it as well.
Exactly. Any other questions, Dan? Is that I don't see any other here.
Yeah, if there are questions, we do have the ability for folks to send us emails so we can get back with them. This will be online for folks to view. We've got to give us a little time to clean it up and get it out there. but we'll post it to not only those that attended, but everybody who was invited. And we're going to be doing more of these, hopefully with Defendify as well, on particular cases where we can drill down. And again, part of your security awareness should be going out and looking at these type of webinars and just maintaining a knowledge of what's out there and what the potential risks are, but also what are the capabilities you can deploy to mitigate things. And again, I want to thank you to everybody who attended, as well as to Rob, who's having a wonderful day with the weather up in Maine. And here on the coast of California, we are facing the same sunny weather as usual. Thank you.
Hey, Mike, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.